tonight. I want to start with the Nixon family. What happened to their children is everybody's worst nightmare. In 1995, mom Cheryl Nixon and her husband Mark got word that 4 of their 6 children were in a terrible car accident. Their 2 sons, Rob and Reed, had their necks broken. They were both rendered quadriplegics, but what happened after that was a miracle. Cheryl and Mark Nixon are here with their 3 children that were in that car accident. Reed, Natalie, and Rob joins us from California. Who wants to tell the story first as a parent of what happened that night and what condition everybody was in?
The night of the accident?
Yeah, what happened to the family and how did everything change?
Our 2 oldest daughters were away at college, and the 4 were at this church youth activity, and they were coming home from that, and we got the call that they were in an accident. And so I called Mark at work, and he came from Boston, and I came from Western Massachusetts, and found that Reed and Rob were both paralyzed on ventilators with bruised hearts and collapsed lungs, and they were like the same injuries for both of them. We just couldn't believe it, and we had 3 different hospitals that our kids were in that night.
Oh my gosh.
And so we didn't know what to do exactly, but we ended up where Reed and Rob were, and we spent several days there with them.
Your life forever changed.
Forever changed.
And their life forever
Yes.
changed.
Yes.
Okay. Now let's fast forward to the point where Mitt Romney comes into your life. Do you know him at all?
We know of him.
We know of him.
Yeah, Mitt, we knew he lived in Belmont, and he had been a prominent person in politics in Massachusetts up to that time. And we knew Mitt had been our stake president.
Let me explain that in case if you're a Catholic, that's kind of almost like a cardinal or a bishop. Now it's bigger than a bishop. It's more like a cardinal. He oversees a whole region of people. So was he your stake president then?
No, he had been released from that calling, and as they periodically make changes.
So he's a regular schmo.
That's right.
And he's not serving in any official capacity, and you've never met him.
We were not acquainted with each other.
What happens?
So the boys had been in rehab for over 6 months, and they were just arriving home late in the fall, and we were up to our first Christmas, and it was kind of a bleak time for us. I mean, this was a whole different way of what we're going to do at Christmas time, which had always been a big family time for us.
Oh, and here we had 2 sons who couldn't even open their own presents. We just didn't know what to do for them.
How are you guys financially at this time?
Well, fortunately, we had insurance, and I was a professor. I am a professor at Bentley University, and I had excellent medical coverage.
Okay.
But we didn't have anything extra at this point at all.
Okay.
So Mitt gave me a call at work and said, I'd like to do something for Reed and Rob for Christmas. And I thought, well, gee, thank you. That's appreciated. And to tell you, we had numerous individuals who had helped us over those months, and people were very generous and very helpful, whatever they could be doing.
Sure.
And so it wasn't uncommon that people would choose to help us in some way. And I guess what was surprising is that what Mitt asked was, well, I'd like to be able to come over to your home. And I thought, well, that was
It's
pretty
different
unusual.
than writing a check.
Right. So, Cheryl, what?
Yes, and so Christmas Eve day, they came over.
Anne and Mitt.
Anne and Mitt and the 3 sons that were at home.
Okay.
They came bearing huge boxes, wonderful gifts for our sons. And Mark hadn't told the boys, so they were totally surprised. And Reed, go ahead.
It was it was amazing that all of a sudden we had a knock at the front door. My dad said that we were having gifts and some guests come over, but he never told us who it was. And all of a sudden it was the Romneys, who were had been in the news.
And Rob, what happened? What did you experience when they got there? What did they do?
It's kind of the same. It was just kind of initial shock. It was, and with the gifts, the boxes, we just saw huge boxes coming in, and we weren't. It was just initial awestruck, and so it was an amazing surprise and gesture and everything, and they actually ended up opening up the boxes and helping us unwrap some stuff. And what it ended up being was my dad had mentioned to Mitt that Reed always used to beat me in stereo competitions, but I just had a little boombox that I used to use, and Reed had a nicer stereo. And so Mitt ended up getting me this ginormous stereo that was just
it was huge.
You're losing. You were losing then.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So I only have a couple of seconds left, but I want to get to this part. It wasn't just that one day, was it?
No. In fact, what was remarkable after that is that Mitt actually came and participated in road races that we had at Bentley University and other road races. He contributed to the to golf tournaments that we had for benefits, and then he pulled me aside really early on in this. He said, "Mark, I want you to know that I will pay for Reed and Rob's entire college education. This is an expense you will not have to ever worry about."
This story's not been told, has it? You just wrote a book in the blink of an eye, the Reed and Rob Nixon story, but you only touched on this. You didn't even tell it completely.
Not in as much detail as we're talking here.
Has anybody from the press called and asked for this question?
There's been a couple of requests.
Are you listed in the phone book? Because maybe they'd have a hard time finding you.
All right. Yeah, we would be happy to talk to anyone that has ever reached us.
Genuine guy?
Well, I'll tell you the more important part of the story. In this, that's always touched me, and that is that he's. It wasn't just his administrative assistant sending a big check, which would be nice. Would have been so appreciated. Yeah. But he shows up on Christmas Eve day, when I would have expected families to be in New Hampshire, skiing in Utah, down the Caribbean, on their own vacation. And yet, what are they doing on Christmas Eve? He comes to the home, and it's Mitt and it's his sons. So the message is, this is what the Romneys do on Christmas. They're out, instead of vacationing, they're visiting the needy.
Well, geez, now I feel guilty. That's not really...
That's actually, to me, has been more important to me than the financial help he gave.
And he's done it again and again and again personally.
With you guys?
Yes, he hasn't, after the initial experience of showing up, he didn't check that off his list and say, I did my duty, which would have been phenomenal. He has, year after year, shown up at 5K races to run the event and participate.
Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on, and I want to apologize because I hear we sent you American Airlines. I don't know who on my staff did that, and I hear it didn't go well for you.
Well, we made it here.
You made it. You made it. All right. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you.
Back in just a second.